God, our strength and our salvation. Amen. You know, we all have those times in our lives, we have those poignant, pivotal, kind of aha moments that not only wake us up intellectually and spiritually and emotionally, but they sometimes have the power to shift our entire paradigm of how we see our lives and the world. I had one of those moments a number of years ago when my son, who's 34 years old now, was first entering public school. And my wife and I went to the orientation where they're telling all the nervous parents about what's going to happen and what we should expect. And the principal stood up and he said something that I will never forget, and it was one of those moments when the light went on and your futuristic vision changed forever. He said, "Our job as educators is to prepare your child for a job that does not yet exist." Our job as educators is to prepare your child for a job that doesn't yet exist. And I thought, wow. It was an observation that really caught my attention, not because I don't think about the future. I love thinking about the future. I love reading about the future and all the possibilities that it holds. It's just that I find myself, like the majority of us, I suspect, when we think about the future, we do so in conventional and often past terms. We see through eyesight of where we've been and not where we might go. You know, I speak to young adults these days, the same age as that same son, and even my own children. I speak to them and I say, what do you do for a living? What's your job? And they ramble off about this and about that and how they go here and there and they can work at home on their laptop in their pajamas and fly everywhere and do all that. And I just stand there and nod my head and say, man, that's really cool. But I don't have a clue what they do. I don't. Doesn't fit my world. I have a daughter like that. I don't understand what she does. I just guess she does it pretty well because they keep paying her, which is also a good thing. You see? Remember laughing at Maxwell Smart and his shoe phone? Do you remember thinking it'd be really cool to have that flip gadget that Captain Kirk had when he talked to Spock? Those were cutting edge. Now these things, now a smartphone and basically a computer in your pocket, we rely on that as much as we do anything else, and it is so common. It's as common as a fork and a spoon, which I remind you were probably pretty revolutionary in their day. In his latest book, Thank You for Being Late, Thomas Friedman describes a similar epic in time. Only when he does so, it's not just about him or one person. He describes this aha time, this awakening, this shift, this paradigmatic shift in society and in the world for all of us. And he says it is the year 2007. What happened in 2007 that changed how we have to look at the future? Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone. Google brought about the Android. Twitter and Facebook went global. Amazon introduced the Kindle, and Intel introduced a chip in a computer that blew away all existing computer processing speed. Everything was different. And then came the cloud, which I don't understand at all either. I just know that it helps me and Helps me to do all kinds of things, but it does more than help us to download books or download music or download movies. The cloud brings into collaboration brainiacs from around the world. You know, you can instantly talk and converse and share and do all kinds of stuff with people around the world. The cloud accelerated human knowledge, providing global connectivity and advancing science and technology at a pace we could never have imagined. A few years ago, I did a wedding off-site. I did a wedding for a group of Wall Street young adults. And one of them worked for a stock firm. And so, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, right, he's on Wall Street and he dresses in a suit and all that kind of stuff. Oh, no, he works in a warehouse in New Jersey. He's a speed trader. And I said to him, well, you know, next time you do that, why don't you just call me ahead of time? Nothing illegal, just say, you know, I got a good feeling. Anyway. His answer, I give it all away to charity, of course. Right? Anyway, his reply to me was, you can't do it fast enough. He said, in 5 seconds or less, I make or lose $500,000. Now that's pretty amazing to me. For him, it's everyday stuff. In the 50s, a man named Gordon Moore predicted, and Gordon Moore, those of you in business may have read about Moore's Law, and it really isn't a law so much as it is kind of a notion, but in the 50s, Gordon Moore said that the speed, the price, the cost, the speed, and availability of computer chips would double every 10 years. By 1964, it was down to 2 years, which morphed into a speed today that we can't even imagine. We can't even imagine. You know, when you buy something online, like at Amazon, or you buy something online like at Walmart, within 5 seconds or less, they say it's got to be less because people get too impatient. Within 5 seconds or less, 4,000 computer things go on out there to find the best location, the best price, and how to get it to you. You see, the future is coming at us. Moore's Law says that the future is coming at us so quickly and at such a fast rate that we are humanly having trouble to absorb it. Which is why there's so much anxiety. So much anxiety. Trying to keep up. But you need anxiety. Don't diminish it. You need anxiety if you place it alongside hope. Because as you look at all this stuff, you know, think of all the good things that have come along with how it's improved our life as well. So you need in tandem both anxiety and you need hope. You know, it is anxiety that makes us think about what we're going to do and not get lackadaisical or too comfortable and sit on the couch all the time because we're a little bit anxious. It keeps us on edge. You know, when I was a young minister, and we were trying to get things, leadership's trying to get things done in the church I was serving at the time, you know, and there's always, well, not always, but a lot of times there's a group of people that oppose that, right? And you know, I went to him and talked to him about my frustration and said, you know, I have to confess, you know, it'd be a lot easier if some of those people just weren't there. And he said to me, after 40 years of ministry, he said, you need those people. I go, what? He said, you need those people because those people keep the other people on their toes. Lest we all become too comfortable, lacking in our commitment, our concern, and our care. Think about it. Scrooge's redemption is neither easy nor instantaneous. It requires a long night of discomfort, a long night. In fact, Dickens says it's 3 nights wrapped into one. It is a long night of confronting things he'd rather avoid, deny, and just not see. He says to the ghost at the beginning, he says, can't we just get it all over, bring all 3 on at once so I can get back to sleep? Sleep is the key thing, you know. When we want to avoid things, we go to sleep. But instead, he was required to face what he would avoid, what was directly opposed to how he had come to think and to see the world, in order that he might wake up, move ahead, and be changed. Are these the things that will be or might be? You know, celebrating Christmas is easy. It's keeping the spirit of Christmas that's hard. But that's a choice. It's a choice in how we engage what is to come. It's coming. You can't stop it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's coming. How are you going to engage and embrace it? Like Scrooge's ghostly visitor, Scrooge's redemption was one of accepting the need for change, and we need to somehow accept that as well. To acknowledge that the world is different, society is different, our children are different, our future children are going to be even more different, which requires different understandings and different approach to our life and to our world. Think about this. The creation of the internet has totally circumvented past understandings of nations and borders. Circumvented. Because in an instant, I can connect with someone else on the other side of the world who wants to do what I want to do or think the way I want to think, and my computer can even translate for me, so language is no longer a barrier. The cell phone, the smartphone, on which many of us are very dependent, and more so every day, helps us to prevent and conquer. It can save lives. You can call instantly when before you had to run to a payphone. But it also brings up challenges, or it also makes one person, a single person, can be as powerful as an entire army. We have discoveries involving DNA and genetics which will help us prevent and even conquer diseases, devastating diseases and illnesses before they happen. But they also challenge us to think once again about what it means for right and wrong. And perhaps the realization that in a world inextricably connected and moving at a very accelerated pace, we must objectively, not biasedly, see where time has led us, where we are, that we might use these changes not for selfish purposes, but for humankind's good, rather than careless demise. I came across an interesting statistic that really made me think. The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the United States spent $75 billion. $75 billion creating jeeps and vehicles that would protect our soldiers from IEDs that cost $100 to make. Now, I'm all for protecting our soldiers. Don't misunderstand me or get me wrong, but in what world does it make sense to get to that point? In what world does it make sense economically in any kind of way to spend $75 billion? Wasn't there a way we could seek peace before we got to that point? It was Albert Einstein who said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that created them. One of the most poignant moments, I think, in the Scriptures, in the Gospels, is the last week of Jesus' life, before Palm Sunday, before the trial crucifixion, before the resurrection, before all of that. He sits on the hillside, the Mount of Olives, outside Jerusalem. He sits out there and he looks at the city and he weeps. "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem," he said, would that you had listened to the prophets. He weeps because he knows the past that has led them to this point and has great fear of the future. I don't have fear, but I have to tell you I have great anxiety these days. Which is not all bad. It makes me think and makes me push and hopefully share some of that with you. But I have great anxiety about the direction of our world. We have done undeniable damage to our environment that has yet to fully reveal the results to us. We have created a global economy wherein one individual who will remain anonymous has accumulated wealth greater than the GNP of 122 other nations. We see nation after nation after nation in Europe with Brexit, or Paris, or Italy, or Greece, even the United States. We see more and more nations moving towards policies of isolated nationalism. Scares me to death as a student of history because it is so reminiscent of the time leading up to the First World War. The word shalom. You know what shalom means? Anybody? What? Peace. Peace. By our definition, what's peace? An abeyance in war. Right? We're not at war. Doesn't mean somebody isn't, but we're not at war. And we usually achieve peace in our thinking by having military or police officers keeping people from attacking one another, right? That's how peace works. That's not how the word shalom, that's not what the word shalom meant in the Hebrew Scriptures. The word shalom didn't mean that you would have enough police or you'd have enough soldiers to keep people from killing each other. It meant that the world had reached the point where you didn't even need police and soldiers because people had learned to get along with one another. It's not an abeyance of war, it's the absence of the possibility. It is what the prophet Isaiah once said, and we read this at Advent all the time. It is a world where the lion will lie down with the lamb, and the child will be free to play over the hole of a poisonous snake and not be afraid. It is where a sword will be turned into a plowshare and a spear into productive pruning hooks, and we will make war no more. Jesus once told his followers, "My peace I give you, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives peace, but as God would give it." It is the same message we hear proclaimed by the angels at the Savior's birth. Glory to God in the heaven and on earth, peace among all people. Is it a dream? Yeah. But it comes to us year after year to remind us that's what God's about. That's what we should be about. You know, in the end, Scrooge is redeemed as he rediscovers what it means to live in relationship with other people. People he didn't like previously. It is the same lesson Jesus taught and lived day after day. But as our dramatic reader said, it is something you have to choose. It doesn't just happen. Our future depends on the choices we make today. Or as the speaker at my daughter's graduation reminded me yesterday as she read that wonderful poem from William Ernest Henley. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. We are the masters of our fate. We are the captains of our soul. May God bless us, everyone. Amen.